but it looks like, if I haven't frozen, it looks like we are live. It is a Thursday afternoon, and I'm here with my friend and probably soon to be yours, Meqa Smith from the Unforgettable agency, talking about some of the challenges in the world of TA. But before we start, Meqa, do you just want to tell people who you are, introduce yourself? I know you don't like talking about yourself much, so this will be really challenging for you.
Of course, it'd be so tough. Hi, everybody. My name is Meqa or Meqa or M, whichever one rolls off the tongue easier for you. I am the founder of the Unforgettable agency, and my background is partly in corporate HR and partly in marketing strategy, which is, I know, a weird mix. But currently, I'm kind of on a mission to help to shift leaders' thinking around the way that they employ people and the way that they recruit people. And my theory, the hypothesis that I'm working everything off at the moment, is that the world has changed so much that we need to stop thinking in terms of what I call the employment mindset and move our thinking around into what I have started to call the enrolment mindset. And that is really the paradigm shift we need to make if we want to solve some of the systemic issues that we have in talent acquisition, leadership, employee engagement and performance. So that's what I'm working on, and I would love to share some of my ideas with you and get your thoughts on whether or not you think they could work for you.
Perfect. Sounds like that's the podcast done. Nice to meet you. Thank you. No, so that's a brilliant intro. Probably the best one we've had since we've been here. Way better than, I won't mention him, but way better than someone we did. So let's jump straight into, I think, the most burning question that probably not only TA people have, but probably business owners or leaders everywhere. It's like, why is it so hard to recruit and lead people? Like, what's the challenge?
It's a funny one, because I think, coming from a traditional HR background, you start to look at everything as a nail because the only tool that you have is a hammer. So you intrinsically want to go to, there's not a lot of people out there, so that's why it's hard. Or, we don't have the right software. Or, we're not offering a 4-day week, or, something tactical like that. And so everybody sits around and they come up with their best ideas. I used to do that myself. And, you're only doing what you've been taught to do.
Yeah.
But the tricky thing is that we're starting a little bit too far forward into the whole process, and we're not zooming out enough. So I've never worked in an organization where we've ever had a shared people paradigm. I've never worked in an organization where everybody from the CEO down actually has a very basic fundamental understanding of how human beings actually operate. How are we hardwired? What motivates us? What is this difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? How can we tap into that given what we're trying to achieve and where we're at? We've never started with that. We just start with tactical stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so hard, because we're kind of using the wrong tools for the job, if that makes sense.
I mean, when you think about sort of interesting comment, we kind of just do what we're taught to do. Is this thing as well? How do we get taught how to lead? It's generally sort of by osmosis, isn't it? If you're lucky, your company might put you on a leadership course that, more often than not, they'll maybe teach you some of the day-to-days, like how to have a difficult conversation or how to have a one-on-one. But then
for sure,
really teach you how to understand people.
No,
and I think going one further,
don't.
teaching you how to understand yourself.
Well, I mean, as we were saying the other day, I mean, if you don't start from a place of self-awareness, and, back to my first point, not just self-awareness, like, I like this or I don't like that, or this is my learning style or disc profile, but really as a human being first and foremost, how are we hardwired? And what are the levers that need to be pulled or that are inadvertently pulled that make us do things or make us not want to do things? So if we can understand that about humanity, then we can understand ourselves better.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can understand other people better. And of course, all those different tools that we often use, like, for example, DISC or other profiles, are very useful. They give us shared language and a map. But we have to start from that human place first.
Do you think it's because this stuff gets a little bit deep? It requires a bit of brain power and the self-reflection, which very few of us are, I think, honestly that good at. Do you think because what you're describing is talking about starting there, that's the reason most of us don't, is because it's just easier to start with body up a job ad, post a job, call your business dynamic and fast-paced like everybody else. and just get going and hope it works out, and then blame the market in the
Yeah,
process or whatever it
yeah,
is when it doesn't go your way.
definitely. I think for sure human nature is we are always looking for the easiest,
Mm.
most pain-free thing to do, right? Like we both
Yeah.
train and we both know that not many people are prepared to put in the amount of effort that it
Mm.
actually takes. But they all want to look good on the
Yeah.
beach, right? I think
Yeah.
it's the exact same thing when it comes to all things talent.
Mm.
I don't think, though, that that applies to everybody. I actually
No.
genuinely think that there are some awesome founders and
Mm.
leaders and
Mm.
TA teams out
Mm.
there, and they really are working very hard and trying their absolute best. But because nobody is out there giving them a simple framework
Mm. Mm.
to use, it is
Yeah.
actually just so overwhelmingly confusing, all the different things that you get told you have to do,
Mm.
that
Mm.
I just think they don't really know how to do it any differently than what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I also sort of have this thing, right, with the reason so many people have an opinion about recruiting and that sort of thing is most of us have been through it, and we've probably all had a pretty average experience, and if we're lucky, had a pretty good experience too. But I reckon I have this theory that the reason that so many people put shade on it is because basically nobody wants to be there. Like leaders don't really want to have to be hiring. They wish
Nope.
that person hadn't resigned, or they wish that team member hadn't gone to a different team or whatever it is. And most job seekers don't really relish the thought of interviewing. Very few get up and go, looking forward to those 15 interviews this week, or whatever it is. Yeah,
For sure.
they wish that the company hadn't made them redundant, or that they hadn't made a bad decision last time and now they're on the job market. Like nobody wants to be there. So you get this sort of almost turbocharged sort of ball of emotion around this thing of job seeking and hiring that just seems to amplify all the things that are bad.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on something here that I quite often talk about in a slightly different way. Like for me, employment is a relationship, right?
Mm,
It's a
mm,
relationship between the people that are working together, and particularly between the person that hires you and you as an
yeah.
individual. So if we just have a look and flip over the job seeking recruitment process and look at dating, we've got all the same dynamics at play.
Mm,
Nobody wants to be on Tinder. Well, unless you're looking for a one night stand and that's your thing, but
yeah.
nobody really wants to be in that search phase,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because it's hard. And I think one of the biggest reasons that when we like flip that back over into the recruitment thing, I think one of the biggest reasons that it feels hard and nobody wants to be in it is because we're still using this employment mindset.
Mm,
And in
mm,
a nutshell, what that looks like is we accept that work sucks. We accept that nobody wants to do it.
mm,
We accept that we have to try and bribe people in some shady kind of a disingenuous sort of a way, like paint a better picture than it actually is to somehow like get them in. And then,
yeah.
now they're sort of trapped because we know that they sort of, don't want a job hop or whatever. And we know
Yeah.
they need to pay their mortgage. So
Mm,
we're coming at it from a place of, I have the money, you need the money, you'll
mm,
do what I want. But I'm not
yeah.
going to be able to say that to you because I know that you're not going to come and
Mm,
work for me.
mm,
So I have to
mm,
say, we have a dynamic culture,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're a 4-day week. So that's the employment
Mm,
mindset, which then leads you to do things that all started out in the scientific era, management era, which is like Taylorism in factories, where you have a job description, you have tasks,
yeah.
you're asking people to do specific things. Now, if we
Mm,
look at where we are now, we are not running factories anymore. Now we actually need to engage people's hearts and minds, not just heads and hands.
mm,
And so
mm,
that's where the
mm,
enrollment piece comes into it. Because if
yeah.
we start from a place of saying, we actually need you, it's
Mm,
not you need us. You've got
yeah.
lots of options. We
Yeah.
actually need you. So how can we completely change the paradigm of what it means to work for us? And
Mm,
then
mm,
again, from that point, how do we create an experience
yeah.
of coming into our business, enrolling you, inspiring you the way that I talk about it instead of
Mm,
recruiting,
mm,
that
mm,
you actually don't mind having? It's not that you wake
mm,
up in the morning,
mm,
you're like, oh, I want to have it. But as you
yeah.
said, the experience is actually positive. How do we
Mm,
do that?
yeah.
That's that's what I'm trying to advocate for.
Mm, mm. And this adage of hire people smarter than you, that thing, and let them solve the problems, give them the space. That's really hard to do with this old sort of mindset that you're talking about, this sort of
100%.
production line sort of mentality. This is your piece of work, do that. Like that possibly still works for very linear work where you're not
Sure.
required to think outside of something that's very sort of confined. But in particularly in the technology space, we're asking people to put high-powered thinking and deep work and understanding customers and understanding user behavior and developer experience and all these sorts of things that you see.
Yep.
Hard to do that if you're asking people to be very constrained in what they're doing.
It really is. And this is where that whole difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivators comes into it, right? So if we go back to the beginning where people are sitting around thinking, okay, how do we win the war for talent? And they think they have to stack extrinsic motivators, right? So work from home, 4-day week, perks, free fruit, whatever, pizza, day off on your birthday. Those things aren't going to get you what you want, which is intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation actually only comes from when our seeking system is turned on. So it's one of our 7 emotional centers. And the way to turn it on is you need 3 things: a sense of purpose, a sense of self-expression, and a sense of experimentation. So when you look back at the Taylorism thing, the job descriptions, the tasks, the KPIs, the policies and procedures, what's missing? A sense of self-expression, a sense of experimentation, and usually outside of you will not get fired and you will be able to pay your mortgage, a sense of purpose. So what happens is people get learned helplessness around the whole concept of employment, which is why I'm advocating for this new way of thinking about it. Because if you can switch the seeking system on, people will be intrinsically motivated. They will do those things that you talked about, the extra mile, the creative thinking, the proactivity. But until you can switch that on, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah. And just thinking out loud, you know what sprang to mind then? Never do a performance review again.
100%.
Because you don't have to. Because people they're enjoying doing the work, they're doing what they need to do, going the extra mile.
And you just have conversations with them along the way, like checking in.
How can I better support
and you absolutely have to have expectations. You absolutely have to have requirements and responsibilities. But if you, as you said, if you hire people who are actually smarter than you, and the only way you can do that is by being, back to leadership again, being a leader that those people want to follow. So you, again, have to have that level of self-awareness to be able to develop the traits that those people are going to want to come and work with you for.
So how do I be the kind of leader that people smarter than me would want to follow?
Exactly. And that takes a whole different mindset, right? You have to figure out what they are actually looking for. What do they want? Do you know Alex Hormozi's stuff?
Heard of, haven't investigated deeply.
So he's all over the internet, and I'm sure a lot of people listening will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I listened to this podcast at the gym this morning where he was talking to gym owners at this conference, and he was saying, if you're telling me that marketing is your problem, you need better marketing, but you are not actually checking in on your existing clients. You are not retaining your members because your service is amazing. You are not giving competitive pricing and amazing value. You are not delivering an amazing clean gym. You are not making sure that they are really getting great results. If you're not doing those things, then let me tell you, marketing is not your problem. And so I feel exactly the same way about this whole war for talent thing. If you are not creating an environment where people can, are set up for success, can play to their strengths, feel recognized and rewarded, and have that seeking system activated, then recruitment and the war for talent and talent attraction is actually not your problem. It's actually the environment. Do you have jobs worth applying for? Or not?
And so this is the going back, this right at the beginning of this conversation, rather than putting the job ad up and all that sort of stuff, rewind. What are we actually selling? Because we sell jobs, right? We sell the opportunity. Like, what is it we're
100%.
actually selling?
Yes.
And so I think there's a danger that anybody just sort of listening to this or watching this would think, oh my God, this all sounds like, super fluffy. Like, how does anybody get anything done? All we're doing is worrying about their feelings and
it's not quite like that, but
how do we get anything done? I think there's this. I think we're definitely entering a new world for knowledge workers of their expectations of what they want, and you can argue whether that's better or worse. Doesn't really bother me, but I'm not convinced that the work side of that equation is catching up. I think there's this left-hand side, if you want, knowledge workers, they want this, they want that, they want to be inspired, they want to be doing this. But the businesses are sort of slowly sort of catching up, I think. One of the things that you and I spoke about the other week was I think I mentioned I'd seen several job ads. I like reading other companies' job ads, and several for leadership roles. So I'm hiring a couple at the moment. I wanted to see who we might be competing against. And the requirements, one of the requirements for all of those roles was the ability to motivate a team.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of things there. I think most knowledge workers don't need to be motivated. Yeah, we all go through periods where you're feeling a bit uninspired, a bit low. Yeah, you're tired from training. You've got a busy family and all that other stuff. And we all just naturally go through these ebbs and flows. But on the big scheme of things, as a general rule, I think many people want to be motivated. I think most of them want to be inspired to do good work, to find a purpose, to follow a leader, just to work with other smart people. And I think that when we boil all this down, what do most people want? Most people just want to be paid fairly, treated well, maybe do some work they find meaningful and challenging. So this intrinsic sort of stimulation, and be listened to and respected. It's not too much to ask, is it?
It's not, and the way to explain that maybe a little differently for people so they can kind of get a visual on it is we actually don't want to be motivated. Motivated is like sticks and carrots, right?
Yeah.
That is actually hard work for a leader or for a manager because you're constantly having to drive people, incentivize people, manage people task by task, day by day. What we actually want is we do want to be inspired. We want to have somebody say to us, hey, we can get here. We want to get here. We want to activate the best self in that person.
Yeah.
But that can only come from that intrinsic motivation. So when we're talking about what people really want from work, there's the common denominator stuff, which is, okay, all humans are hardwired for. And this is what I have sometimes called the human operating system. So all human beings are hardwired for a sense of belonging to a tribe, a sense of purpose, like what is the tribe trying to achieve? It used to be avoid death and survive, but now it's whatever your team or your business is trying to achieve. And a sense of being able to contribute significant, specific value to that tribe, right? And that is simply because we were trying to survive back then. And our hardwiring told us that if we didn't make a contribution to the team's survival, which was the team's mission, we would be rejected from the tribe and we would die. So we are actually hardwired for that sense of contribution, but we need to know what we're supposed to be doing, and we need to know why it matters. And we want to feel like that we are part of something. So that doesn't necessarily look the same for everyone, is the next layer of that, which is the individual piece. So for some people, they just want to make a shitload of money. And that's because to them, making a hell of a lot of money makes them very valuable and respected, and that makes them feel buffered against rejection, which is what we are all terrified of just in our brains. For some people, it's being of service. They want to be a carer. They want to contribute. They want to value. So different people are motivated by different things, and different people they're at different stages of their career, and their lifestyles are different, right? So to try and put a blanket thing out there to say that everybody wants this or everybody needs that is erroneous. And I think what we need to focus on is, instead of desperately trying to appeal to everybody, as a business, own it. Own what you are actually doing. Are you there to make as much money as you possibly can, no matter what? Own it. Are you there to change the world? Own it. Do you have epic offices that are just phenomenal? Own that. If you have shit offices, but you can offer flexibility, own that. Like really just double down on whatever your uniqueness is, because you will attract your people who want what you have. But as long as you're all trying to look the same and sound the same and offer the same or whatever, you will not spark anything in anyone. People will just be like, okay, well, work sucks, I suppose, so I'll just put my resume in here. It's like you're losing out on all that human energy that could be activated. And that's the whole difference for me between employment thinking and enrollment thinking. Like,
Yeah.
it's a big shift.
Yeah. It's almost like people defaulting to having to just go and work for the best of a bad bunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're not
Yeah.
giving them anything else. There's a
Yeah.
guy, I can't remember his name now. I think his first name is Barry. And he has done a ton of research on why people work. And he's got this epic quote that I wish I could remember, where it's something like, if you think that everybody just works for money, then it's probably because you've not given them anything else to care about
Yeah.
except for
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the crux of it, is when we have the employment mindset, we accept that work sucks, nobody wants to do it, and
Yeah.
so we have to come up with perks. We have the enrollment mindset, we're like, people are hardwired for contribution. They do want to make a contribution.
Yeah.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course they want to get paid and, as you said, treated fairly and all that, but
Mm.
that you want to spark something in them that makes them think, this is for me.
Yeah.
I could be that person.
Yeah. LinkedIn data, the last bunch of LinkedIn data I saw, um, said that average job tenure in the tech space is 1.6 years.
Okay.
Does that absolutely tell the story of what you're describing here? Is no one's no. So what I'm getting at is that saying people are putting up with it until they potentially see something better. There's nothing that they're experiencing, no purpose, mission, whatever it
Yep.
is, that makes them go, "But no, I'm staying here because I love the environment and the people, but I want to achieve this thing, like whatever that thing is for them."
Yeah, I would say it does tell that story. There was a book that was written way back when I was still in HR called The 7 Hidden Reasons Employees Leave. And the number one reason was a disconnect between expectations and reality.
Yep.
So
Yep.
back to my point before, whatever you are, own it. Don't pretend to be something else.
Yep. Yep.
Because people will come in thinking that that's what it is, but gradually they will realize it's not that. He also
Yep.
talks about the fact that there is a downward staircase of disengagement that happens with people, where it takes them some time to go through this process to get to the point where they look for another job. But by then, they've already stopped really being productive, and then they will go and look for another job. But then there's another argument as well that is difficult to make based on tenure, because somebody could come into your business and add more value in 12 months than another person could add in 12 years.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be careful not to fixate too much on retention, because if we're attracting the right people and we're enrolling them in the business, and maybe they go as far as they can with us, and if we let them go on good terms, they might very well come back to
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
later on. But if we have a shit experience for them because we've basically clickbaited them or lied to them or catfished them or whatever, then they are never coming back to us. Even if they do leave us, they could leave as an advocate. They could send us other clients, refer other employees. But we have to do a good job of being a steward of their careers as well. We have to set them up for success. And I do think it was actually Seth Godin who said, on this exact question that he was asked at a conference, he said, you should actually make sure that all your people have like monthly workshops to like update their LinkedIn profile and keep their resume up to date, because you want to know that they are all staying with you because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, again, it comes down to that whole shift in mindset,
I remember interviewing for a job, I know, 20 odd years ago, and that wasn't long out of the forces, and was lucky enough to have some brilliant leaders there. And I can't remember exactly how we got there, but I must have mentioned leadership a couple of times. And this person that was interviewing me sort of sat back in their chair, rubbed their chin and said, "You expect a lot from your leaders, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, because they're sort of in charge of my career, like my learning and growth. Like I'll be looking to them for advice and guidance. So we need to be pretty comfortable with each other." And it sort of seemed like this sort of foreign concept. It didn't get the job, which
Funny
in hindsight, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it's one of those rare sort of moments in interviews that I remember. You said something earlier about the carrot and the stick and trying to drive behaviour. Is that why you see quite often in leaders' resumes that they're a strong leader that drives performance?
I think so. I definitely think so. And it comes back to the assumption that people don't want to work, and so you have to make them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also think that what's happened is over the years, we've developed a lexicon that everybody uses, but that many of us don't actually understand
Yep.
the
Yep.
words. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if I say leadership to you, you have an image of what that means. I have an image of that means. It might be a completely different thing. Same with drive a team or drive performance or motivate.
Yeah.
I think that we have all these words that have become almost meaningless because they're so vague.
Yeah.
And people put them on their resumes because that's what people put in job descriptions. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
I remember back when I was in HR, and I hate admitting this because it's so mortifying, but I was running a team. I was working for a multinational. Like, I wasn't just like some little coordinator somewhere.
Yeah.
But I actually didn't understand any of this stuff that we're talking about now. I was degree qualified. I had many, many years of experience. I read lots of books. I went to lots of conferences. I thought of myself as, well educated and good at my job.
Yeah.
But I did not understand the dynamics of what we are talking about here at all. And so when I saw certain language being used in job descriptions, I thought that's how you had to say things. I thought, well,
Yeah.
if you look left and right, everybody else is saying it. So that must be the way
Yeah.
you say
Yeah.
it. And no, you're not going to go in a meeting and be, you're paid six figures, you're leading a team. You're not going to go in and say, by the way, everyone, see this weird language here? Like, I'm not 100% sure I know what that actually means, because you think everyone else must know.
Yeah.
And you
don't
think
want to be
you
the
are the
man.
moron that doesn't know. So I actually genuinely believe that there are a lot of founders, a lot of leaders, and a lot of people in HR and TA that they see this stuff and they think it's wrong. They know it doesn't make sense, but everyone else is doing it, so they just keep doing it.
Yeah. While we're on the topic, are you allowed to call yourself a visionary? Or should
Oh
other
God,
people
I
call you?
don't think so. Can
Should
you?
other people call you? I've seen a few resumes recently where people call themselves visionary leaders. So
I
like,
think it's a bit, I think that's the sort of thing other people can say about you, but
yeah,
you can't
yeah,
say it about
yeah,
yourself. It's a bit
yeah,
like thought leadership. You can't like put,
yeah,
I am a thought leader.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
okay, according to,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, so again, anyone watching or listening to this might sort of be thinking to themselves, all this sort of inspiring stuff is probably pretty easy when you're big global company, Google or Microsoft, never really have that
Yeah,
much
yeah,
problem
yeah.
getting people to apply for roles. It's not one of their challenges. Or you're saving the world in some way. But what if that's not your business? What if your business is, in inverted commas, ordinary, or just about
Yeah.
making some VC people some money, or just about revenue? Like every business has got to
Every
make money,
business
else
is
you
a
don't have a
revenue
business.
aspect. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would say I have a two-pronged answer to this, right?
Okay.
Because I spent quite a long time in marketing, focused
Mm.
on positioning and brand strategy and that sort
Yeah.
of thing. If ultimately you don't know how to articulate anything unique about what you do other than making money, like if there is literally
Yeah.
no value that you are adding to your customers' lives in any way, shape, or form, then you've probably got a much bigger problem than talent
Yeah.
acquisition.
Yeah.
But assuming that you can in some way, shape, or form articulate the value that you deliver, whatever it may be the best prices, it may be the quickest service, it may be whatever it is. It
Mm.
definitely does not have to be solving, world hunger.
Yeah.
Then you've got something, right, that somebody with a skill set
Mm.
would probably go, yeah, okay, I can buy into that. That seems like a
Mm.
worthy thing to work towards,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But the next layer of intrigue, of desire building, of connection, of emotional uh, spark igniting, shall we say, is how specifically do you do that in a way that makes you different from like maybe 100 other people in your industry?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where we come to, people talk about their values and they often get that
Mm.
very,
Mm.
very wrong. So I'm hesitant to use that terminology.
Mm.
But this is where we talk about how specifically you do things differently. Like, what are the key principles that you
Mm.
use, or
Mm.
the
Mm.
systems, or the processes, or the things
Yeah.
that you believe are really important?
Mm. Mm.
Because that's going to give somebody else a layer of depth to say, oh, you're my people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're my people. I
Yeah.
feel like that is true,
Mm.
and that's how I like to work.
Yeah.
And people are so different about that stuff. So that helps you
Mm.
to
Mm.
take things to that next level. And then the final thing I'll say in terms of the layered approach to this is you are unique. You as the whether you're the hiring manager or the leader or the founder or the CEO or whoever you are, you are a person that has a unique way of leading people. And some people will want to work with you because of your style and the way that you do things. But going back to our first point of self-awareness, you have to be able to know that and own that about yourself and put it out there. Because if you don't do that, you will build a team of people that you don't like, that have a completely different style of working to what you need them to have to be able to actually get them on board and get them to do things. And it doesn't have to be that way, because that makes work suck for them and for you, and it perpetuates that stupid bloody thing where, everyone hates work. So you have to make an effort to put yourself into part of the package. You are part of the package, that leadership thing again. It's very, very important, but all of those things stack together, right? So the actual leader or the person that you're working for, the values, the principles, the uniqueness of how you do things and what you sort of believe, like why is what you do valuable, that stuff. And then, the actual thing that you are doing. You stack those things together, and that's your sort of, that's the nuts and bolts of your pitch. And then you've got your job worth applying for, which is where you kind of go into the detail of, like, if it's the sales rep or if it's the receptionist or if it's the VP of marketing or whatever. You structure a job. My biggest piece of advice to people is find one thing that's a common frustration for people in that job type and solve it for that person. So then you create a job that is, going to be appealing to the kind of person you want to attract.
And your last point there is to me is one of the key things that I think a lot of people don't understand about recruiting and talent acquisition is you need people to self-select out, but you need to be self-selecting as well. If you have people applying who don't care about those things, you've just created a whole bunch of people that you need to go through and reject all that.
A whole bunch of work for yourself.
If 5 people apply for a role and they're all really into and connected to the things you're describing, you potentially got 5 great candidates to choose from.
And your life is so much easier.
And theirs is, and their employment experience.
Exactly. And then you've only got 5 people to get back to, and you can give an epic candidate experience. Everybody wins in that scenario. Nobody's wasting their time.
Yeah. I think pretty much anyone watching, listening, I have, and I'm pretty sure you have had the experience where you're driving home or on the train home, whatever it is. First Friday, you start a new job on Monday. You're going home the first Friday, and you think to yourself, WTF? What have I done? Oh my God. Most of us just tough it out. A few of us, start searching straight away. But I think we've all had that. And I think this is that thing that we talk about is there's disconnect between what you being the business, the company, are selling and reality. The sausage and the sizzle, someone called it. I'm not sure if I'm 100% sure, keen on that description, but again, it sprang to mind. We expect the work environment to be one thing, and we've been told that it's going to be this and it's going to be that. And end of your first week, you found it's totally not. I think onboarding's got a little bit to do with that.
Sure.
First day, I've turned up to work at recruitment to jobs in the past, and the previous person's desktop computer is still there, and there's their Coke can from Friday night still on the desk. And
it's clear no one's prepared for you.
No system logins, can't do anything. So here, read some pamphlets I printed out for you. So probably not a great start. But more importantly, I think, that stuff's almost sort of comical, but the first Friday, you're sort of thinking about the interactions you've had and the people, and you think these are not my people. Like, what have I done? Like, how could I have got here? So that's literally no fun for anyone. The company, you resign. Company've got to go through it all again. Default to, we made a dud hire. Well, you did, but so did the candidate. They made a dud hire as well.
Yeah. And
I've got this other thing as well, that we all sign an employment contract of some kind that sort of states, what you'll do, when you'll do it, what happens if you don't, who owns IP, all that sort of stuff. But there's also sort of an unwritten emotional contract as well, isn't there?
There
Where
is.
we expect to get treated well. We expect to get, you know, given clear direction on what needs to happen. We expect to get spoken to in a certain way or not in a certain way. What are your thoughts on that? Is that stuff that we should be spending more time thinking about?
100%. So with the framework that I've built for Inspiring, it's actually on one page and it goes through a process from left to right. There's 9 key boxes in it. And one of those boxes is the offer.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, making the offer is an absolutely critical part of the process. It builds on previous parts of the process. But when we have taken somebody through, obviously my process is very different from the standard one, but when we've taken somebody through a recruitment process, to use the analogy of dating again, we've tried to put our best foot forward. Oftentimes we do that disingenuously, and that is a hard no for the reasons that you just said before.
Yeah.
So much we could talk about even just on that, but we've been putting our best foot forward. The candidate's been putting their best foot forward.
Yeah.
Emotions have been generally high because we're dealing with the successful person, right? And now we get to offer stage, and then we just smack them with this massive document full of legalese and, this will happen if you don't do that, as you said before. And it's such a low. If you had to map it emotionally, it would be, there's highs and lows throughout, but then it's a high and then a smack of a low. And on both sides, there's this emotional contract, right? That nobody speaks about. And it's almost like that big tome of a document actually doesn't matter unless things go really pear-shaped. But all the stuff that we don't talk about is the stuff that matters every single day. So I have actually solved that problem to some extent by putting what I call a social contract on top of the commercial contract.
Nice.
And so in that, we actually take all this unwritten stuff and we actually put it down on paper.
Nice.
And we put it down on paper from both sides. And we as individuals actually sign off on it. Nice. And that is obviously going to be specific to the organization and the role and all that sort of stuff. But we build that as part of the process. So again, we are actually building expectations and continuing to set and meet our expectations for that person and setting them up to succeed. And then the final 3 boxes are actually pre-boarding, onboarding, and then an employee experience that develops engagement beyond reason. So you cannot see, and this is the other thing for me, you cannot separate recruitment out from performance. No. You want to separate recruitment out and sit it over there as like a cost to be minimized, an admin task. It is absolutely paramount. It is part of performance.
Yeah. Because expectations of performance and day-to-day interactions and all the things that impact performance should be described up front, some 100%. Kind of job ad PD 100%. Through the interviewing process, so there's no surprises. So you don't have that end of Friday going, holy WTF, what have I done?
Exactly. But the other thing is too, as you mentioned, the self-selection in or out piece is absolutely massive. When you're not giving people enough information up front because you're trying to get as many candidates as possible, you are actually losing the people that you really want because they can't see anything in it for them. You're getting a whole bunch of people that you probably don't want. You're making a ton of work for yourself. But then also you haven't got the enrollment. You haven't got the engagement, which is what you really need to catalyze and accelerate performance. Otherwise, it's really hard. You've got sticks and carrots. When you bring them in enrolled, then it's a much easier transition. Obviously, you'll have ups and downs, but it's a much easier transition into high levels of performance.
Yeah. If you can only deliver a vanilla experience and vanilla thinking, you're only ever going to get vanilla. No, I like vanilla ice cream. 100%. I'm not like
and again, as you said before, like this is not for everybody. If you are doing volume hiring for a multinational, for a contact center where literally all you are offering is dollars for hours, and I've been there, then what my advice to you would be, own it. Actually, don't try and dress that up. Actually own it and say, hey, if you are really strapped for cash, if you are a student, if you are this person or that person, we offer this amount of money, these kind of hours, give us a call, whatever. Like just own it. So this whole concept can be adapted to different situations and circumstances. It's not some kind of cloud cuckoo land thing. And it's also not about making people happy.
Yeah.
It's actually about trying to have that alignment between what people can do and what they want to do and what you need done.
Yeah.
You know, work together to create a better outcome for everyone.
Yeah.
That's the critical piece. They have to have that career progression and personal progress and success, but that will contribute to yours as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. We could literally sit and talk about this
Oh, we
all
could
day
totally talk
long.
about this all day. Yeah.
If people want to talk to you directly about this, I'm sure there will be. We're going to add your details in the comments section.
Great.
They can also Google Unforgettable Agency and find you there.
They sure can. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. My website is in update mode,
Yep.
but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in there all the time. Shoot me a message. I would love to chat.
Perfect. Let's give people something to take away, a soundbite. Where would, if they go away and with one thing go, right, this is the thing I want to focus on, what would it be?
That shift, that mindset shift. Realize that the world has changed and that it is now about you needing the right people on your team.
Yeah.
And here is a really cool way to think about it. You want to build your minimum viable team, right? Nobody thinks about wanting more people, right? Nobody goes, oh, I want more people. Nobody wakes up, as you said, nobody wakes up going, I want more people to pay, more people to manage, more people. So if you think about building your minimum viable team, like how few ride or die people can you get on your team who are truly enrolled, it will change your mindset completely about who those people might need to be and how you can catalyze their intrinsic motivation to get that massive amount of leverage out of it. Like, that would be my massive takeaway. Just shift your thinking about that. It will naturally shift what you do as a result.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, my friend. This has been great. We
I've enjoyed it.
will get this edited, push it out live. Hopefully people will enjoy it. Lovely to have you. Thank you again. We're going to try and do something in person at some stage. You're in Brisbane, I'm in Melbourne, but hopefully we'll be able to get to it soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
Cheers.
Take care.